All right, we can finally get this started. All right, let's get this started, everyone. Hello, and welcome to Secretaries 101. Everyone can hear me, right? Can everyone hear me? Yes, okay, perfect. Hi. So we're gonna get started with Secretaries 101. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming out to this workshop on a Friday evening of all things. So go ahead and get started. So who are we? So my name is Douglas Shimizu, and I go to Cal State Fullerton. I am the immediate past secretary. I'm a second year, and I am a computer engineering major. And go ahead, Amy.
Okay. Hi, I'm Amy. I'm also an immediate past secretary. I go to UCR. I'm a third year, and I'm a linguistics major with a minor in psychology.
Yes. And we also have a special guest with us today. So can I have Ryan Tan unmute his mic?
Yes, hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Tan. I'm the district secretary for the 2020-2021 term. I am a fourth year studying psychology at Pasadena City College. And yeah, I'm super excited to work with each and every one of you. Don't be afraid to ask me any questions. And yeah.
All right, thank you, Ryan. So now I'm just gonna continue forward with the general duties and responsibilities of a secretary. So go ahead, Amy.
Okay, so pretty much you guys probably know some of the general duties and responsibilities that you guys have, but I'm just gonna briefly go over it. So one of the things that secretaries do is record minutes at every meeting. So this includes board and general meetings. You also do submit a monthly report form, which you guys should have done, I think, once or twice now, yes. And then also you also assist with the master record sheet. And we will go over the MRF and the MRS in a lot more detail as the workshop goes on. Along with that, you also ensure that your club bylaws are transparent and enforced, and you work with the rest of your executive board on that. You also do submit an international MRF on top of the regular MRF, and we're going to go into detail with that later on. You also manage, keep track, and update your club event report forms, or the CERFs, as you guys have probably been doing by now. And lastly, you work with your treasurer to help update the MEC, or the Membership Update Center. Okay.
All right, perfect. So now we're gonna go into something that that I feel like every e-board officer should know kind of going into their term. So this is district graphic standards. So this doesn't just apply to like the PR chair, public relations chair, or just even your videographer. It applies to any official documents that your club creates, like that you create, and your resources. This includes like your meeting minutes, and it's even seen on like the CERF. So I'm just gonna pull up these resources right now. So 1 second. Okay. So this is the district style guide right here. And so this is a really good resource that the CNM committee has created for use for everyone in the Cal-Nev-Ha district. So whenever you create like your meeting minutes, or whenever you're creating any official documents, even your club bylaws, you're gonna want to be referring to this resource. And even like on like presentation slides. So if let's say you were to do like a surfing workshop, like a how to surf workshop, then you would want to put the masthead on there, and also the stripes. And you can also tap into all these graphic standards assets, which are just available through these resources. So feel free to contact Eric Hawai'i and the CNM committee if you have any more questions regarding that. For now, we're just going to move on to meeting minutes. Okay. So meeting minutes. So this is what you're going to use to keep track of everything that occurs during either an administrative meeting or a general meeting. So here are some essentials that you should include. So a call to order, attendance, so who is in attendance, so you can actually serve the meeting after it's done. Event recaps. So this is like any past events that have happened in the past week. Any upcoming events. So in the coming week, maybe you have a service project, or maybe you have a general meeting that you want to make aware to your board officers. And through these, you're going to want to also have board discussions on any topics that might be brought up to any board officers by general members, or just any things that your A board might need help on, things like that. So I'm just going to show you a sample meeting minute right now, a sample of the meeting minutes right now. Okay, so as you can see, this is what Cal State Fullerton has been using for their meeting minutes. And so as you can see, there's like a call to order, there's attendance. We go into an icebreaker even for anyone to attend our board meetings, and just for our board in general. We also go into our calendar, so weekly events, and we even have our board reports. So this is just to keep all the board officers up to date with what's going on with each other. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to know about the meeting minutes. But now we're going to move on to CERF. So take it away, Amy.
Okay, so I'll be talking to you guys about the CERFs. So this term, it's actually a little bit different than it has been in the past because we've been using Excel sheets for CERFs, but this term, it's actually Google form. So I would recommend that whichever one you're comfortable with, I recommend doing the one that you're most comfortable with, because you are going to be using that to like organize everything and input that into your MRF and MRS. So yeah, I just recommend using the one that you are most comfortable with. But because for the new term, it's a Google form, I'm going to go over the Google form one, but we'll also show you the Excel one, like just in case. Doug, can you open up the Google form?
Yes, of course. Okay, perfect. Right here. Yeah, there you go. You should be able to see it now.
So you all are probably pretty familiar with it by now, but I'll just like briefly, I'll be going over the tags in like pretty good detail. So when you first open up the form, you're gonna put the name of the event, and then also the chair's name would go next, an event chair. And then after that, it's gonna be the event chair's contact number. So like best way to contact them, and then like a phone number. And then if you scroll down more, it's gonna be the event date, like the day of the event, and then what time the event started and what time the event ended. And then after that, it's the person filling out the CERF. And this at times can be different from the person who chaired the event. But if it's the same person, that same person would also put down their name. And then we're gonna get into the tags now. So I'm gonna explain these in a bit more detail. So we start off with the community service tags. So CO, any service event that you do, it's gonna be marked with that tag. Next is a campus service, so that's CA, and that's any event where your club is doing community service on your school's campus, and it's hosted by your school's admin or like their student body. So if you do service at like an elementary school, that doesn't really count because that's not your campus. It has to be on your own school campus. And then next is CS, which is continuing service, and this is an event completed repeatedly at least once a month or for like a 2-month duration. So an example of this, this is at UCR at least, but last quarter we had an event called Feeding America, and we would go there, we would have the event every Friday. So that would be a continuing service event. And then next is the DSI, which is a district service initiative, and that is any event that contributes to your current district service initiative, which is serving the environment. And then lastly, it's the ISP, which is International Service Partner. This tag doesn't get marked a whole lot, but it's any event that contributes to or involves an international service partner. So an example of this is, I have the name in my head. I'm so sorry, I'm totally blanking out. Doug, do you have an example of an ISP? I have one, I can't think of it.
Yeah, so ISPs include Better World Books or UNICEF. So you know those trick or treat boxes that we did a couple years back. Those are one of our international service partners.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and then next is the leadership event tags. So AD, basically any leadership event would be marked with that tag. So that includes any meetings, so board meetings, committee meetings, general meetings, and then also like tabling and workshops would be marked with that. And then next is the fellowship tag, which is SE, and that is where pretty much any social event where like members are like socializing and interacting with one another. There's so many social events like an eating social, like if you're going out to eat, or like movie nights and stuff like that. Okay, and then we're gonna get into the miscellaneous tags. Okay. All right, so there's a bit of miscellaneous tags. So for MD, that's membership development. This is any event that promotes membership education and development and recruitment. So that would, some of those would be like tabling or like any workshops. And then FR is the fundraising tag, and this is pretty self-explanatory, but this is any event that is a fundraiser. So if you are, sorry, if your treasurer or fundraising chair is hosting an event where you're raising money for a DSI, then you would mark that tag. Next is AL, and that's alumni. So this is any event where 2 members from your Circle K Club and at least 2 alumni are present. And an alumni is someone who was in Circle K and then they like graduated. Next is Kiwanis Family, and this is an event where there's at least 2 members from your own Circle K Club and at least 2 members from another non-Circle K affiliated club. So this would be Key Club or Kiwanis Family Club, those would count. And then some events that would count for that tag would be like Key to College or Key to Life. And then next is interclub. So I'm actually going to explain this one in pretty good detail because it is a little complicated. So interclub is where there's an event where there's a certain number of members from your own Circle K Club and at least and 2 members from like another Circle K Club present. Or wait, not 2, but so there has to be a certain number of members from your own club and a certain number of members from another club present. I'm sorry if I make this sound confusing. I'm gonna try to like really simplify this to the best of my ability. So clubs with less than 50 members, you need a minimum of 2 members present with from another club in order for it to count as an interclub. If your club has 51 to 90 members, you need a minimum of 3 members for it to count as an interclub. And then clubs with more than 91 need a minimum of 4 members present from another Circle K club to be present. And then also with interclub events, you cannot tag the club hosted event, the club hosted tag, unless it is a service event. If you do have questions about that, you can like ask at the end if you would like. I'm sorry if that sounded a little confusing. And then next is the webinar tag, and that is any workshop broadcasted online, like right now, yay. And then we have DV, which is divisional, and this is an in-person event hosted for your own division. And it's usually hosted by your lieutenant governor. And then next is DE, and that is a district tag. So this would, so FTC and DCON would be marked with that tag. And then INT is international. So this any event hosted by Circle K International. An example of that would be CKIX, but unfortunately that is not really happening in person at least. And then lastly, HE is club host event. And out of all the miscellaneous tags, this is the tag that you would mark the most. So this is really any event hosted through your own Circle K club. And yeah, those are all the miscellaneous tags. And then after that, you just put down the attendance of each member and the amount of hours that each member gets. We would recommend putting this in alphabetical order by last name because I think that would probably be easiest. So you can like input that on the MRS a lot easier. And also if there's like an event that you have where it's like a social and a social and a service event, make sure to put the hours for like the service tag and the fellowship tag. And then after that is Kiwanis family attendance. So if there were any other Kiwanis family clubs present, make sure you put how many members attended. And you do not have to put the name of those members, just how many people from that club were there. And then next is how many funds did your club raise. So if it was a fundraiser, then you would put how much money your club raised. If you, at the time you're filling out the CERF, if you do not know how much money your club raised for that fundraiser, I recommend putting like to be like TBA on it, or TBD, I guess. And then let your secretary know later, like once you know. And then also I would recommend, if you do, if you can, put down which DSI or which charity it would go to, just so like your secretary has like a note of it, or the secretary, yeah. And then lastly, the best way to contact you, members just put that down, and then there's any special notes to add. And you would, if there was any driving involved, make sure the members put down like how many miles to and from the event they drove. And then, yeah, any other special notes. Yeah, also, if you haven't already, I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you do teach your board members about the CERF, because they're the ones that are going to be filling it out the most. So if you haven't already, you could just do like a little like workshop on it during like your board meeting or something. I really recommend that you do teach them this and like the tags and stuff, just so they're more like educated about it. Yes. Doug, if you have anything to add, please add on if you want to.
So before we jump into the Excel CERF, I'd like to say that both options are viable, whether you want to go through Google Forms or through Excel. It's really up to your club, so it's up to club preference. And that really falls on the secretary, so that's all of you out there. So I'd highly recommend experimenting with both options and seeing which works best, but one option is not better than the other, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So if you wanted to go over just the regular Excel CERF, Amy?
So this is the old CERF, the Excel sheet. I'm not going to go into it like a whole lot like how I did with the Google form, but I guess we'll just open up the tabs, I guess. So this is the introduction, and then we'll, I don't know what the next tab is actually, whatever. Yes, so this is the next tab where you like put in the event info and then you mark the tags. And then the one thing about the Excel sheets is anything that's in yellow, like you see those yellow boxes up on the top, anything in yellow, you do not mark it. Everything in white is where you write everything. And then whatever you write in white will get transferred to the yellow parts. So Doug just put an X in the CO and CS, and it already appeared on the top, like magic. So yeah, because if you do mark on the yellow, it kind of does, it's a little, it won't work, or like it will work, but like it's just better if you just mark on the white. That's the one thing about Excel sheets. We'll go on to the next tab. Okay, so this is your attendance for your home club and your Kiwanis family. Again, on the yellow, do not write anything there because everything will already like appear. So you put the name of the people that attended, and then however many hours they got for each tag. And then also same as the Google form, I recommend alphabetizing it by last name. And then to do that, you would go, for the Excel sheet, you would go to data, and then you would go to the A to Z, like the arrow thing, and you would click that, and then it'll automatically alphabetize for you. Well, it's actually already automatically alphabetized now, QRST, yeah. Yeah, but that is where you would go if you wanted to alphabetize it. Yeah, I think, okay. So yeah, so all the names, go to data, and then you go to the A to Z arrow down, and then it'll alphabetize it for you like that. Okay, and then next tab. So the next tab is driving info. So if there was driving involved, you would put the name of the driver and the mileage to and from the event. And then it'll already calculate the total miles for you, so you don't have to do that part. And then after that tab, is that it? Or no, after that is fundraising. Yes, so if it was a fundraiser, you would put down the fundraising info there. Oh, I think, is there a question? Oh, I thought that was a question, sorry. Okay, yes, so any fundraising info you would put there. Again, if you do not know the amount, I would put like TBA or TBD, and then at least put down what DSI would go to. And lastly is the commentary. You don't really have to do the commentary actually, but it is there if members would like to add anything they want to. And yes, that is the Excel, and that is the Excel CERF.
So that is the Excel server. Yes. But yeah, for the commentary tab, it might be useful for, I would say, for your VPS. So let's say you go out to a service event and maybe the coordinator is not being the nicest to you, then maybe I'd write something down on the CERF that says, hey, the coordinator wasn't that nice to us. So your VPS knows to either contact them or they'll know how to handle the situation from there. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the monthly report form. All right, so y'all have probably filled out an MRF at this point and submitted it, at least for March. If not, we're gonna go through it really quickly right now, and I'm just gonna go through and explain how some of the tabs work and how you can best utilize it to help your club out. So I'm actually gonna go into a live demo right now, so give me 1 second, change it over. So hopefully most of you have seen this Excel file by now. This is your monthly report form. So what I would recommend doing is definitely making a master copy. So all you have to do is save the next month as like a new file basically. So you can just submit it to the district. So I'm just gonna run through the tabs real quick. So you're gonna start, just gonna go, this is the first tab on the MRF. So start here. There's an instructions tab next, but we're going to move on to club administration. So I know some clubs out there haven't yet appointed, their, I know some clubs out there haven't appointed their A board, or some of them might have just elected their E board even. So right here is where you're going to want to put all of their contact information. This is just basic information, so you're gonna want to make sure to communicate with your board officers. Even create like another resource besides the MRF if it's a little bit complicated for people to navigate. So yeah, just make sure to fill out all their information here, and if any info changes, make sure to update that as soon as possible. So this really just comes down to communicating with your board officers, so just make sure that you're doing that. The next tab is club membership roster. Here is where you're gonna put all the names of your club members and their information. The best way I think this should be filled out is in conjunction with your treasurer, because your treasurer is in charge of collecting dues, so you're going to want to collaborate with them in order to get all this information. And it's going to do all the calculations automatically, so you don't have to calculate the number of dues paid members you have or anything like that. But make sure you put it in alpha order using the method you saw previously. Make sure to do that. Next tab is annual total. So on this tab, it's going to be a bunch of statistics which are automatically calculated. So as you fill out your MRF, this tab is automatically going to update itself. So there's a bunch of numbers. There's a lot of blanks because this is a new copy, but this is going to fill itself out as you go. This is a really good way to see how your club is growing throughout the term. I'd recommend looking back on this every 3 months just to see what your progress is. This is also pretty useful for when awards come out in terms of interclubbing and DCM, things like that. You're going to see event totals, fundraising totals. These are just the total number of hours for each tenant within your club. So it's going to be really important that you reflect on this from time to time. Next tab is club trends. I personally looked at this the most because it's got a nice graph. Obviously, there's no data right now, so there's no graph, but here's where you can see how your club is growing visually from term to term. So it takes data from the past 3 terms which you're just going to copy and paste, and it's just going to show up here. And so the next tab is going to be club goals. So if you haven't already, I'd recommend talking to your board and coming up with club goals in terms of service, leadership, and fellowship. So the 3 tenets. Make sure you talk to your fundraising chair. If you have one, talk to your treasurer, see how much they want to raise for the DFI or what their goal is. So this is basically a board effort, and this is important so the district can see what your club goals are and if you do accomplish them throughout the term. We're going to move into the monthly tabs. I'm sure you've all seen this before. I'm just going to point out a few things. So for each monthly report, you have up to 1 month to go back and change it. So if you made a mistake on your last MRF, let's say the March MRF, when you submit your April MRF, you can actually change it by just highlighting text in red. So I'm hoping that you all have filled out the information here. Another thing too is some of the formulas are a little bit wacky. So what I would suggest doing is actually changing this, because with the exact amount of dues paid members for your month, so I'd actually recommend changing this cell right here to the exact number of members, because you're going to want to see how your club is growing from, let's say, summer to fall when you get a large influx of new members. And also make sure that you're filling out the district communication and feedback. This is really important in case, because all the LTGs and the D-board officers are going to see this. So you're going to want to make sure that you're filling this out as completely as possible so that they know what your club needs within the next month or so. And we're just going to move on to spring reflection. So every quarter, every 3 months, you're going to want to fill one of these out. Again, this is going to be a board effort because your club is going to have to answer 5 questions, which is basically just a reflection of how you've been doing so far through the season and what you plan to do for the coming season. This is really important that you talk to your club board officers to see what their opinions are on this, and even make it a board discussion during one of your meetings that I would suggest doing. Or at the very least, make sure to contact your e-board, and because your president will have the best insight as to how the club is doing. Also, make sure you look at the past terms MRF, because they're going to have a lot of good information for what worked and what didn't work during the season. So that's pretty much it for this MRF. If you have any more questions, you can ask them at the end of the webinar. But yeah, for now, I'm just going to move back to, I'm just going to move on to another important MRF. So you may or may not know that this is the district MRF. So you submit this to just the district, but there's actually an international MRF, which you submit to, Circle K International. So the form sort of looks like, if I can find it, should be the one. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to, okay, so it kind of looks like this. So what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna go into members.kiwanis.org, and here's where you're going to see the monthly report. So I'm just gonna give it a few moments to load. So you and your treasurer are going to work together in order to fill this out. Your treasurer is going to work to fill out the membership update center, while you as the secretary are going to fill out the monthly report form. Since the treasurer is in charge of collecting all the dues within your club, they're going to work to update the number of members your club has in terms of international. So while the international MRF isn't something you need to fill out when you submit your district MRF, it is something you should still fill out after you submit every MRF. So I recommend making it a habit from the very beginning, because all this international MRF has is data you copy directly from the MRF. It's simply total. So as you can see, it's just asking for service hours completed in their clubs, K-FAM relations, and these are all our international service partners right here if you wanted to see a complete list. And the cool thing about it is that you're able to recognize a member. So let's say you do a member of the month, or even, so like a member of the month, you would put their name right there. and you write a little description about them so that they can be recognized. And that's pretty much it for the international MRF, and you just hit submit, and that's it. But now we're just gonna move on to, so that's the end of both MRFs. So now we're gonna move on to the master record sheet. So take it away, Amy.
Okay, so I'll be talking about the master record sheet. I know that none of you guys have the master record sheet yet. You will be receiving it from the MRS coordinator around August, I believe, like during summer. So the MRS is due in October, January, and March. It is due, it's usually due on the same, like just like the MRF, like the 5th of every month, usually at least, unless there's some like special circumstance. But yes, Doug, can you open up the MRS?
Yes, 1 second. Okay, here it is.
Okay, so this is an example of Cal State Fullerton's MRS. It's a little tedious if you like are really looking at it and you're first starting to work on it. I highly recommend not procrastinating on this because I kind of made that mistake my last term and that was not fun. So like really give yourself time to like work on this and don't do it all at once. But pretty much you're gonna take information from the MRF and just pasting it onto the MRS. So this is the first tab. It's pretty much like your event tab where you literally just copy and paste all the events from your MRF onto the MRS. So the number of attendees and all the tags should automatically like be marked when you copy and paste it. The only thing that you do have to do yourself is write down who the chair of the event was if you look to the right. And also after that, you're gonna also wanna put down every single paid member after the event chairs. And then if they went to that event, you're gonna put down how many hours and for what tag it goes to. So this is where like the tedious part like kind of comes in. Yes, and if it's like a really big event, then there's gonna be like a lot of members that went. So that's why I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do not procrastinate on this. Yeah, so that is the events tab. And then we'll go on to the next tab, which is the Interclub tab. So this is a tab specifically for interclub events. So if you see on the upper right, there's a button that says pull data from event sheet. So once you have all your events down, you're gonna click that and automatically all the events that you tag with the IN tag are gonna appear like on this page right here. So the name of the event and the number of members should automatically come up. Oh, and the date. But the only thing that you do have to add on yourself is the miles traveled, and then the number of Circle K members and the number of Kiwanis family members. So with the miles traveled, you want to do to and from the event. And then also and then next is the number of Circle K members. So this includes your own club and also any other Circle K clubs that may have been there. And then for the number of Kiwanis family members, you're gonna wanna put down how many members from a specific Kiwanis family club were there and make sure to put down the names of each of those clubs. Doug, can you go to the next tab, please? Okay, so this is the members tab. So you actually don't have to edit anything on this tab. This is just something like cool to look at. So you can see each paid member and how many hours they have done in each of the 3 tenants and in all the other tags as well. And you could see, it's actually pretty cool because you can see whether your members are at MRP or if they're close to it. And if you always forget the requirements, there you can actually look at it to the very right there and see what requirements you need for each tier. It's actually pretty cool, I think. Yeah, so you don't need to do anything on this. It should automatically do all that work for you. But yeah, and then we're gonna go on to the last tag, and this is the individual members one. So actually, I think this one is like also pretty cool. So you do not have to mark anything on here at all either, but you can go to any person's name in your club that is on the MRS. We'll just look at Doug's hours, I guess, since it's his name right there. But you can see what events that individual member went to, and yeah, and see how many, like, you can see other stuff, like how many events they've shared, how many articles they've submitted, how many webinars they went to. It should all automatically do all that work for you. You don't have to do anything. And then, yeah, it's actually pretty cool. So really on the MRS, there's only 2 tabs that you have to edit yourself. It's the first 2 that I went over. But yeah, this is just something cool for like you and also general members and like board members, like for everybody to look at. And yeah, Doug, do you have anything to add on?
Yeah, so to add on to that, this document is going to be really crucial for awards. You might have heard your board officers last year or even this year. They were like, oh my God, we have awards to do, but this is where they're getting all that information that they need. So it's really important that you keep this sheet up to date when it does get released. It's going to be really important for your appointed board officers as well as your executive board officers and your club as a whole. So you're going to want to make sure that this is updated and as accurate as possible. And that's all I have to add for that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and that is it for the MRS.
Okay, nice. All right. Now we're going to move on to distinguished secretary. So I will be covering distinguished secretary. So at the end of your term, this is an award you can apply for and be given to at DCON if we had DCON, which is fortunate, but you know, at least we had like an award. So I'm really happy that I was able to receive my award. So these are just going to be general tips from my personal experience to help you get this award. And so here are some of the requirements and helpful tips. So you're going to want to make sure you turn in all your MRFs on time for all the months. So not only will this get you the 100% MRF on time award for your club, but it's also going to be beneficial for you on your awards. You're going to want to make sure to take minutes at both board and general meetings. So make sure that you have evidence that you have been taking minutes and make sure your minutes are very thorough. This is not only important for the award you shouldn't be working for, but it's important for your board to look back on. This includes like the next board and even the current board. Make sure to educate members and share events. So your duties as a secretary don't just stop with you sitting behind a computer screen and submitting a document. You want to make sure to engage with your club members and with your board officers. You're going to want to make sure to do that. Next is attend meetings. So you're going to want to make sure you're present. You're actually present at meetings. So this includes board, general, DCM, things like that. And make sure also to make sure to interact with your division and make sure to attend like divisional events such as DSPs and DCMs. You're going to want to make sure to do that. And also make sure to support other board members, which you should already be doing by asking them the questions on the MRF. So that will help. And also make sure to collaborate with them on that. And so that sort of brings us to the end. So if anyone has any questions about anything we talked about, or if you want us to discuss resources, we can do that. But I'm just going to open this up for questions to anyone right now. Yeah, feel free to either unmute your mic or use the raise hand feature on Zoom, and we can take questions right now. Let's see. If not, I can. Let's see. Yes, Steve, go ahead. Oh, ongoing quarantine prospect. Okay. So I'm going to answer Steve's questions first, and then Amy, can you take Scott and your rest question afterwards? So as far as quarantine is concerned, this isn't going to impact the secretaries. It's actually going to make your job a lot easier, just because there's not as many events to keep track of. Most of them are administrative, such as club meetings, and maybe administrative board meetings, things like that. In my experience, I've seen the most difficult thing is when your club goes to another club's meeting using Zoom. So for example, I'm from Cal State Fullerton. Normally, I wouldn't be able to attend a Sac State meeting, but with quarantine, we can't. So it's going to be a little bit difficult for the secretary to get that information, but make sure to keep in contact with your PR chair and make sure that you're communicating with the other secretary that your club attended.
Doug or Amy, how do you guys recommend taking minutes at general meetings?
Okay, so I could take this question too. So as far as taking minutes at general meetings, every club's general meetings is run differently. And so in my experience, what I've always done is during happy sad change, I've always written down what the total was, just so that there's at least a backup of how much money was raised and where it's going to. Secondly, I would suggest writing down all the open floor comments. This is important because your club members might be advertising something that they're working towards, or maybe there's like an event that they want to promote to the whole club as a whole. So you're going to want to make sure to keep track of that. So your board can either choose to promote it, or your board is at least aware that it's happening, things like that. Yeah, that's what I mean by taking minutes at general meetings. But in general, you don't really have to if you're using like meeting slides, things like that. So yeah. Yeah, one of our early MRFs too. So this year, Ryan implemented a new system. So there's actually early and on-time MRFs now, as opposed to just on time. So early MRFs are due on the, Alan mentioned it, but second of each month. So you're going to want to turn in your April MRF on May 2nd if you want it to be early, and on time is on the 5th, as it always has been. Do we have any more questions? Anything that's being confusing? Let's go over it really quick.
There's a question. Who do you send the MRFs to? I could go over that if you want. Or
yeah,
Doug.
Give me one. Yeah, okay. You can. Okay, you can start it. Go ahead.
I'll go over it. So, you send the MRFs to a couple people. So there's gonna be a Google group. I could type it in the chat if you would like, but it's CNH MRFs at Google Groups. I'll type that in right now, actually. MRF. CNH MRF. Google. Yes, that is that is like a Google group that the district secretary has like made. And then you also send it to your lieutenant governor, your faculty advisor, your Kiwanis advisor, your regional advisor, and I would just recommend you send it also to your club board as well, just so they can also look at it and see like all the stuff on the MRF, just so they know what's going on as well during the month. But yeah, oh yeah, thank you. There's the checklist. Yeah, so those are the people that you send it to. I hope that answered your question. I was gonna, oh shit, oh, there's another, what was your favorite moment when you were secretaries? I guess I'll go. So for me, my favorite moment was actually FTC, because that was one of the times when I got to meet like all the other secretaries. If STC happened in person, you would have got to meet your other secretaries there too. But I got to see like everybody, like from the whole district, at least the secretaries that went. at FTC, and that was like pretty fun. And then that's where like we got our jackets too. So that was like probably my favorite moment. Doug, did you want to
Um, sure. So my favorite moment, my best moment as secretary was actually submitting my first MRF, because I was really, really stressed, even though it's like, for me, it's like not that difficult now, but the first time you do something, it's always like really nerve wracking. So it's just really relieving to know that like, that I've like done my duty as secretary and I've like executed it well, things like that. And not only that, but I had also like learned a lot from that experience. But yeah, so that's like the best moment as secretary right there. Also, another thing that I wanted to add was this resource here that's on your screen. So this is actually a monthly report form checklist. So if you want, I can send this file to you if you contact me, or I can just like get it in the comments or something. But this is something that you can use that can help you to make sure that you send everything. There's also one for the MRS. So this is really helpful when the MRS does come out and you want to make sure that you've done like everything that you need to do on it. So this is a resource that was created, I think, last year, 2 years ago by my predecessor. So if anyone wants it, just let me know after this webinar. But yeah, there are more questions in the chat.
There's a question. Do you count hours for DLT members, district committee members, and district board members? So yes, we're so sorry. We forgot to talk about that. So you do have to count those hours, but only for the people that are in your own home club. So if, for example, for DLT, if there's like 2 members from your home club and the rest of them aren't in your home club, you don't have to count their hours. You just count the home club's members. Also same with district committee and district, yeah, or district board. Yeah, so for district committee and for DLT, usually somebody will send you a CERF for like any committee meetings they have had. And that is how you would keep track. Doug, did you want to add on to that?
Yeah, so what I would suggest doing is coming up with a list of all your members who are on DLT, all your district committees, and even on D boards. This will be really helpful to make sure that you're keeping them accountable each month to turn in their meeting CERFs or committee meeting CERFs, things like that. So you're gonna want to make sure that they don't rack up at the very end, because personally, I ran into the problem where I forgot to remind some people on district committees, and I was getting CERFs from like July, and this was in February, so you don't want that to happen. But yeah, that's all I have to say for that. Yes, do you have any more questions?
Oh yeah, I wanted to say this earlier, but there was like a question stuff, so I completely forgot. So I would recommend especially with your board members, to like set up kind of like a system when you're like getting CERFs, because in the beginning, at least of my term, I found it really annoying when I had board members send me CERFs like a month later or like a couple weeks later. I really recommend you maybe set some like quote unquote like rules, I guess, to like when submitting CERFs and stuff, because it could be really annoying if like you have to fill out the MRF and you're just waiting on like one CERF from a board member. So like for example, yeah, so penalties, you can do penalties. I didn't do penalties, but I know that some clubs did. For example, like I think there's a club where if somebody turned in a CERF late, they would have to donate like 25 cents to a DSI or something. But yeah, only do it for your board officers. Don't do this to general members. Yeah, I highly recommend doing that. So for example, once an event happens, board members have 3 days after the day of the event to like submit a CERF. And then if you want to do it differently for general members, you can, where they have like a week or something. I really recommend doing that because it sets kind of like a structure down for you, and it just makes your job a little easier. So I totally forgot to say that earlier, but yeah, Doug, I don't know if you wanted to add anything on to that.
So I'm gonna be honest. So it's one of those scumbag secretaries that freaking put penalties on my board officers at the beginning, and it worked out. From my experience, it worked out from the spring to like the end of summer. But once fall hit, like you have CERFs coming in pretty much every single day. And I think in like October, I had like 90 something CERFs. So I pretty much just gave up, and there was like so much happening, like recruitment. We were looking at like membership programs. So like retreats, those should be higher priority than like taxing your board officers for late CERFs, you know? So in my experience, it worked up until the fall, and then I just gave up because it was just too much work, and people just don't want to be accounted for just because they're already putting in a lot of work in the Circle K as like an A board officer. So you need to be worried about if you want to implement the system. Yeah, that's all I have to say for that.
Oh, Doug, did you want to put up the QR code?
Yeah, so right now we're still taking questions, but I'm just gonna put up the QR code. So thank you for coming to our workshop. You're free to leave, but we'll still be taking questions if you have any, or you just want to hear any resources that, or you need like resources that we have. So feel free to reach out to both of us if you have any questions. But that's the QR code. You can also find it on Facebook on the event page. Yeah, thank you for coming to our webinar, but we'll still be taking questions for the next like 10 minutes or so.
I hope this was helpful, and we wish you luck on your guys' term. Have fun with it. Don't be too stressed out. And yeah. Oh, there's a question. Oh, how do you take attendance at online meetings or online events? So this is different for every secretary, but you can put up like a Google form for like people to sign in to the meetings online if you like to. I think that's what most people have been doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, for those of you who have other things you're going to be doing right now, thank you for coming, and yeah, really have fun with your term. You only get to be a secretary once, and yeah, just make sure that you're not like overworking yourself, and make sure to meet your counterparts. It's something I cannot stress enough. Just please reach out to your counterparts, because I know like before this webinar, like the only other secretary I reached out to was like one other secretary in my division, and then I was like, I don't know any other secretary, so I just reached out to Amy, and we decided to do this webinar. So yeah, please reach out to your secretaries. They have like amazing resources, so some of which that could be like really useful to your club. So sure, talk to your counterparts. But yeah, what was the question? I forgot the question. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you have like any other questions, like Ryan is your district secretary, you can always ask him questions. Also, I think another person that is really good to reach out to is your predecessor. They are like, if they're like still around and stuff, like you can always ask them for questions. But yeah, anyways, again, thank you for coming. You can still ask questions if you like. Oh, if you have a large club, how do you take attendance at general meetings? Doug, do you want to answer that? Because your field is larger than mine.
Okay, so in terms of taking attendance for larger events, most of our meetings are actually held through Zoom, and in Zoom, there's actually an attendance feature. So you can actually track the attendance and export that data as an Excel file, so you have all that info for yourself. So as your attendees like log into the Zoom meeting, you can actually like log their attendance. So that's like a really cool feature that Zoom implemented. If not, then you can just simply use a Google Sheet like the one that you're filling out for your attendance for these webinars, like for STC. You can either do that and just export it as like a Google like sheet, pretty much, and all that data is going to be there, and you can easily sort through it. So, in terms of
in person.
in person.
So at least for my club, what I did was I had a table like right by the door, and me and the treasurer would sit at that table because the treasurer would be there if there was somebody who wanted to become a member, and then I was there with my laptop open, and I just had the Google sheet up, and I just had people sign in their name. That's what I did at least. Doug, I think you probably did it differently.
So yeah, so for in-person meetings, oh man, okay. So for in-person meetings, how I did it was, so I'm actually very familiar with the members of my club. So I just like was able to like write down their names. So let me see if I can pull up a resource that I use a lot. I think a lot of you might find this useful. The people that are still here, let me see if I can pull it up right now real quick. Okay, so this is a resource I created for myself, and this is basically how I track attendance, or how I tracked attendance during my term. So as you can see, all our general members are to the left, last name, first name, and then all our general meetings are to the right. And so all I did was I just marked an X if they were present at the meeting. So all you have to do is like hit an X, and then what it does at the bottom of the sheet is it just totals everything. The reason I did this, the way I did it, is because if you take a look at your MRF, it appears the same way. And when you're surfing, all you have to do is sort by a certain meeting. So let's say you want the 8th general meeting, right? Then you would just, you simply just sort all the names of your members with whoever has an X next to their name. And then it's already like alpha order, so you just have to copy paste it to a surf. And you're gonna notice on your MRF, you also have, you're also tracking the total attendance. So what the sheet does is automatically does that as you mark X's. So I found that really useful for my general meetings at least. And this applies if you if you just want to like have a table out there and then you just ask for the name and you just send the X, things like that. So all the data sort of accumulates at the bottom, and everything at the top, you just mark an X if they attended the meeting. And I found that really helpful for myself. But yeah, that's pretty much how I did it throughout my term. Yeah. Anyone have any other questions, or maybe do you have any resources that you would like to plug while we're still here? You track the attendance of your family members not from your club. Yeah,
Yes, you do.
not from your club.
Yeah, because on the MRF, where in the meetings portion, so it'll say like number of general members, and then one of them will say number of KFAM members. So you do want to keep track of like anybody that is at your meetings, even if it's someone you've never seen before. You still want to get a record that they were there because they're considered a guest. And you would also mark that on the MRF as well. So honestly, anybody that goes to your meetings, you do want to make sure that you keep track of that.
Yeah, it's also like really important for the MRS too, because basically going to be pulling that information to verify that the events you marked as KFAM or interclub are actually KFAM or interclub. So you're gonna want to make sure that you have that information too. Yes, how's everyone's term as secretary going so far? Because y'all just like, you're almost through April now, right? So then your term like.
Question. How do you recommend surfing all the Zoom interclub meetings with regards to members sometimes not letting you know until the day of, or collecting all those surfs?
Like how is, okay. Yeah, so I would not recommend just like randomly just like throw an event at your members like bam. All right, like we're having an interclub today. So you're gonna want to make sure to publicize it like at least a day in advance or like a few days in advance so people actually, you know, go. And if you're having a problem where you're not able to collect the search like the day of, make sure, I mean, besides like communicating with your public relations chair, who is probably setting these up, and you know, now it's like even harder to track like who went to your meeting. So I recommend coordinating with other secretaries, if that makes any sense. And then because the thing is like anyone can go to anyone's meeting now, so it's gonna be like so chaotic to like track who's where or who went to what. I would hope that in the future there would be a resource for all the secretaries to use, where they just put the number of members that from other clubs that attended their meeting, so that, and it's something that everyone can see. And this would be helpful because then you could see like, oh, one of my club members went to like the UCI meeting, but like I didn't know that. So, and then you would just like ask Dan, right? And you'd be like, hey, like who went to the meeting, things like that. Would it be necessary to fill out STC for other clubs like UCI?
Wait, I'm not, wait, Steve, did you want to like unmute yourself? I wasn't, because you did raise your hand. I wasn't quite sure if you wanted to like unmute or not. Or, oh, no, okay. Or, okay.
Okay, very good, good.
So yeah, would it be necessary to fill out SERFs for other clubs like UCLA making a SERF other club? Let's see.
Okay, I guess that does off. So in my experience as secretary, I don't think this is necessary. It really is the responsibility of the attending club secretary to be accountable for that. And also just make sure to communicate with your general members like, hey, if you go to another club's meeting, like surf it or tell me so I can surf it, things like that. But I feel like, especially if you have a lot of members from other clubs attending your meetings, I feel like it's a lot of work. And I think the only reason this would be necessary is for like a DERF for the district, like for STC or like, I don't know, STC maybe, or like a division. For example, like a DCM, things like that. That's the only reason I would see for making one for other clubs.
Yeah, and I agree with Doug on that. Because like you guys are already like doing so much work as it is. You really don't want to put more work on yourself than you need to. So yeah, I like totally agree with Doug on that. I hope that answered your question. Is there any other questions anybody would like to ask?
Yeah, I'll take like 2 more questions.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else to like that we didn't mention or anything, but I think we covered like everything. Oh, how's your day? My day is good. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, Yeah, it's kind of warm. I don't know about y'all, but like it's pretty warm in
Oh,
SoCal
yeah.
right now.
I didn't like it was so hot today. Like I was sweating. Like I was working today and like I work at In-N-Out, so like I was like outside taking everyone's orders and was wearing a mask and I was dying because of the heat. So it was pretty bad for me. But then I came back to my like nice cold apartment, so I'm like chilling now. Oh, how do you know who attended a district event or divisional event? So for district events, you're gonna, we didn't really touch a lot on this, but Ryan, whenever there is like a district event like FTC or for example, he would send something called a DERF. So it's a district event report form. So he would send those and that is how you would get the attendance for that. Yes, it's a DERF. Um, and then for divisional events, usually, well, at least for what I went through like last year, my lieutenant governor always took the attendance, and he always sent us like before the MRF was due. He always sent us like a Google sheet with like the attendance and stuff. Um, but yeah, usually somebody else will like email you the attendance. You don't really have to take the attendance yourself. At least that's what I went through. Doug, did you want to add anything?
I think you pretty much covered it. Yeah, I mean, make sure to communicate with their DLT and LTG in terms of division. And I know Ryan will send out theirs when there's a district event. So you have nothing to worry about. Just make sure if you think there's a mistake, make sure to contact the respective parties. So, yeah. Okay, so in terms of keeping track of your events, I'm going to actually plug one of my resources right now. So if you would like to use this, feel free to contact me and I'll just show you a copy, but here it is. So this is what I call the CERF checklist. So this was really useful for me during my term as secretary because this is what I used to keep track of every single event that our club had. Now, you might think it's like rhetorical, since like, oh, you're already using the MRF, so like, why should I need this? Why should I use this? But there's actually made this so it has a lot of useful information, and it's like really informal. So you can like literally, it doesn't have to be the same thing you see on the MRF. It's just to make sure that you don't miss any events. So it looks very similar to the MRF and MRS actually, because you have the event share, so you can just reference this when you're filling out both documents. You can even put the event type. So let's say an event has like the same name for whatever reason, but it's marked for 2 different tenants. Then you can just like mark what type of event it is, things like that. And then here you can just like mark if it's completed or not. Like if you have it in your, like if you received it, then you just mark an X so you know like, oh, I have it, you know, you're not missing anything, things like that. And then you can also see like, oh, how many have I completed over here? Like how many CERF sets do I have? Have I copied them to the MRF most importantly? And are they on the MRF? Things like that. Here's just like a mini MRS for like this dead time when you don't have the new MRS. This is for board officers. This is just to see like if your VPS wants your board officers to achieve a certain number of hours. This would be very useful. Also useful for your board officers if your club has any, where they're gonna need to know their hours for each tenant when they go to district board meetings. So that's really useful. There's also a bunch of links to the board calendar and the service calendar. Your club has those. Yeah, I found this resource very useful for myself. So if you would like to see it, if you would like a copy, just let me know and I can link you it.
Yeah, honestly, Doug is like so organized when it comes to this stuff. Like he showed me this, I think like 2 months ago or so when we like were first talking about like doing this workshop at DCON actually. But yeah, if you would like his resources or anything, like I would highly recommend hitting him up. I really wish I knew Doug like earlier on in my term, because then I could have gotten these resources for myself, but I unfortunately like just started talking to him towards the end of the term, so it was like a little too late for me. But like, yes, he's so organized. It's crazy impressive to me. So yeah, I unfortunately was not as organized as he was, but yeah, great job,
Yeah,
Doug.
so thank you. So this is just one more thing. This is the board calendar or my board used. All these events are passed. It's kind of colored weirdly, but there's a key at the top so you know what everything is and when everything happens. This will prevent your board officers from scheduling things on top of each other at the same time. And it's just easier for you to see like, oh, like we have a DCM, so let's not like schedule a service event on the day, things like that. Useful for your board officers, your VPS, like your PR chair, your KFAM chair, whatever chairs need this, like your e-board will need to know this information. You can even put birthdays if that's something your club does, like birthday recognition, CKX, things like that. It's all color coded at the top, so you know what each event exactly is, so it's not just black and white. But this is something that my board personally used, and we found it really helpful just because, like, let's say because my VPS would sometimes schedule a service event, and then maybe we want to interclub on the same day, so that the VPS and the PR chair don't have to like talk to each other directly. They can just like look at one resource and be like, okay, I want to schedule like 2 events on the same day, so we need to like figure this out. So they know to talk to each other, things like that. Let's say you want to visit your Kiwanis, you're sponsoring Kiwanis club. Well, then maybe your KFAM chair wants to schedule a meeting, so you don't. So this prevents you from scheduling another event over that event. So because you want your club to be fully present at one event and not like scattered like freaking everywhere, you know? So it's helped me stay organized. That makes sense. But yeah. So they're just 2 resources that I found like really essential for at least myself and my board. Yeah. So efficiently, yeah, I can do that, I guess. So. But yeah, okay. So something else that I'd recommend doing is to stay organized, at least at the very minimum, in my opinion, is to use Dropbox or Google Drive. Like, as secretary, like organizing these resources for your board will make your life a million times easier because you're not frustrated like half the time, scrambling to figure out what event is happening on what day, where your resources are, what your predecessors did. So you're not like reinventing the wheel every single time you want to make an event. So I recommend creating a Google Drive for your club so that you have the resources necessary to like execute events, things like that. So yeah, that's what I would recommend. So either use Dropbox or use Google Drive. Those are the 2 resources I recommend. But feel free to use whatever works for your club. You know, I come from a very different club from all of you, so just do what works best. But trying to give you the foundations for like staying organized, basically. But yeah, any other questions? Any other final questions? Yes. If not, then please don't forget to sign in using the QR code or just going to the Facebook event. Make sure to go to tomorrow's session of workshops. I'm not exactly sure what those are, but please make sure to support those workshop hosts. It's going to be on Saturday at 8 p.m. same time, same place through Zoom. So make sure to support them. And yeah, I think that's all I have.
There's just one more before we end it. How often should I update my MRF and MRS? So, well, for the MRF, you do have to work on that every month. So I think I'll talk more about the MRS just because that one is a little more like tedious to work on. I highly recommend working on it very early. For me, at least what I did was I worked when an MRS was like close to the due date, I kind of did it little by little and like worked on it like a little bit like every day at a time. But I think everybody has a different working style when it comes to that. And then for the MRF, I kind of did everything just in one day because you mainly have to do those monthly tabs. So I just did those all in one day. And then once I was done, I just like turned it in at least. But everybody does have a different working style. when it comes to this. Because Doug probably did it really differently compared to me. So Doug, if you want to like talk about how you did it.
So at the beginning of my term, my president actually sat down with me and we made a timeline. I recommend doing this for not only yourself, but for your club so they stay organized. And so I told myself, I would update the MRF every 2 weeks, and the MRS I would update, on a biweekly basis as well. So I'm just doing all my work at once. Whatever fits your working style is what you should stick to, but just make sure to stick to it and do not wait till the last minute. Like, please do not wait till the last minute. It's not helping anyone. Just update it when you have time. Okay. And yeah, that's all I have to say on that topic. Yeah. Yes. But yeah, if y'all have any more questions, I think that's all. But I'm gonna stick around till everyone leaves. And if you have any more questions, just just feel free to shout them out. But you're all free to go. You were like 20 minutes ago, but yeah, thank you for attending this workshop and have fun during your term. You're gonna do great, and expect to see 100% MRS on time when Decon 2021 rolls around. Yes. Yeah. But yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna stop recording the meeting now, so I don't like destroy my computer.